Even just the cover, it just makes me, when I look at it now, it makes me so sad. But I think this is honestly just a glorious book. I love this book so much. And actually I wrote a review on my phone, and I feel like, I don't know, maybe at the time I was feeling quite philosophical, so I think I would just read you what I wrote in my review. Right, here we go. I read this at a perfect time in my life. Heartbreak, loneliness, longing, finding your soulmate in this big wide world and then losing them once again. In the end, you're left with nothing but memories, but with time, even those begin to fade. You continue to miss the person, your person, with every day, week, month that passes. Will your paths ever cross again? Was it not all meant to be? It is about a shy young man who, mainly because of financial reasons, he goes from his home country, which is Turkey, to Berlin, and he lives there for about a year. He tries to find work, and in the first year or so he doesn't really have many interactions with people. He mainly just explores the city. But then, and I don't want to explain how it happens because I think you should read it for yourself. But he basically meets this woman, and when he meets this woman, I think it is sort of love at first sight. You know, when you have this such a strong feeling of connection towards another person and you can't really explain why, but it's just there, and maybe you don't even understand where it's coming from, why you feel this way, and maybe the world doesn't really understand, but it's just you and the person, and being together with them makes you feel so much comfort and like you belong so deeply to the other person, which is maybe unlike anything you've ever experienced before with anyone else. I think the book is really about finding that person and how it feels to feel such a deep longing and connection to another. And I think meeting a person like this is really just a gift in itself, even if it ends badly, or even if you won't be together forever. I think just having an experience like this is such a beautiful thing to happen, that you are at the same place at the same time as this person. And I mean, this book from the beginning is really laced with sadness and longing and feeling like you're on the outside. I think especially the narrator of the book, he definitely could be categorized as an outsider, and so if you have sort of feelings like that, I think you would really like the book, basically. Also, what I thought about when reading the book is this idea of soulmates, and if you meet another person that you feel so connected to and you think or you believe strongly that they are in a way your soulmate, when you lose that person for whatever reason, it feels even worse because you feel like you will never meet a person like this again. And so the internal heartbreak and the sadness becomes even worse. And I think this is something that was really perfectly depicted in the novel, because it truly felt like the two people were just meant to be together, even though they are both flawed. They both had communication issues, and you know, it's not perfect, but just as humans, deep down, the connection that they had was so profound, and so the effect it had on them will last forever. The next book I want to talk about I already mentioned, so I won't spend too much time on it, but it's Giovannis Room by James Baldwin. And this is, I wouldn't even say just a love story, but it's again about longing, also about obsession, And I found it just very interesting, the whole concept, because it's basically about two men that meet in Paris in, I don't even know when, is it the 70s? I'm so bad with dates. But I would just put it on the screen here, and it's basically about a forbidden love, because obviously at the time it was not legal, let's say, for two men to be in love and to be in a relationship. And what I found most interesting when looking back at the book is how the two characters express their emotions. So we have Giovanni, which is the lover of the main protagonist, and especially towards the second half of the book, he really opens himself up towards the main protagonist. I believe his name is David. His name is rarely mentioned, but let's just call him David. Giovanni really opens himself up to David and really tells him how he feels, tells him that he loves him, basically, that he's in love with him. And then on the other hand, we have David, who's a lot more restrained in what he expresses, and I guess a lot more composed. But I think what the book really kind of showed me is that even though people process emotions differently, in the end, if you lose someone that you love, you will still fall apart, and maybe the falling apart will be shown in a different way for each person, but it just shows that even the people who pretend or who are on the outside very strong, they still have all of these emotions and feelings inside of them, and in the end they can still fall apart and crumble. And again, about the concept of soulmates, I think this book really just showed that how being simply in the presence of the person that you love, how much it can do for you, and how much joy and happiness and fulfillment it can give you. And I think that's just really a beautiful thing, because you don't even have to do anything, the other person doesn't even have to do anything. Just being in their presence can do so much for you, and I think that's very beautiful. Bell Hooks, and I think she's a really famous non-fiction author. She wrote so many books about love and feminism and just about women, and I really love her. I really admire her so much. Now, the book I read by her is all about love, and I have to say, the first 50 pages or so, I wasn't really convinced. It's basically a non-fiction book about love, and it has different chapters. It has something about childhood and family, and I guess growing up and how that influences you. It has chapters about self-love, about friendship, about romantic love, about spirituality, about religion, about all these kind of different things. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, the book was first published in 2000, or at least around that time. And I can imagine that at the time it was quite influential and I guess maybe revolutionary. But I feel like with all the things that we know now, maybe at this moment in time it's not as revolutionary, because at least for me, I felt like, this, like what she's writing about, I already know about this, sort of. But I have to say, I think it gets better. Like, the more you read, I think the better it gets, because I think in the end I really liked it and just what she's said. And even though I might not agree with everything, it just gave me like something to think about, and something to reflect about, and maybe question my own beliefs and my own thoughts. And I really like that about the book. So yeah, I am glad that I read it, and especially one part I don't have the book with me right now, so I can't actually look back at what I want to talk about, or like I can't confirm or tell you exactly which page it is on, but I think maybe towards the middle of the book, or middle slash more towards the end, she talks about the difference between a connection of the souls, and I don't know if it's like what did she compare it to? Was it to desire, or I don't know, but she was talking about, I don't remember the other term she used, but she was talking about a connection of the soul and how rare it is to have such a connection, and I found that very interesting and very relatable. She also talked about how there's a difference between falling in love and choosing love, which I found very interesting, and I believe this has been talked about multiple times from various people, but just reading about it, it really made me think, and especially in terms of romantic love. Next, I want to talk about De Profundus by Oscar Wilde and other prison writings. I actually have not finished this book yet, so maybe this is technically cheating, but this is just so dense. It's so dense. Okay, I don't think I'm gonna resume the whole backstory to you because it would take quite a long time, but if you're interested, in this copy, in this edition of the book, there is a big introduction to give you context on what happened, and I think that's very necessary in this case, because once again those are letters, so it's technically non-fiction, and in order to understand you would have to know the context of Oscar Wilde's life at the time. So in short, he basically ended up in prison because of various things that happened in his life and because of the people he knew, especially his lover, Lord Alfred Douglas. And whilst he was in prison, I think he was in prison for 2 years. When did he get out of prison? Was it 1897? Yeah, I think he was in prison from 1895 until 1897. So there you go, I was not wrong. But basically, this book is a compilation of various letters he sends to friends and other correspondents, and then the big letter, which is over 100 pages, which is called De Profundus, which is a letter he sent to his lover, Alfred Douglas. Now, this is really something else. I mean, just when you think about a 100-page letter you send to your lover, over 100 pages, it's actually quite insane. But I think this really taught me a lot about the artist's brain, and how artists are when they fall in love and when they are obsessed, and when love, hate, resentment, and all these big emotions kind of intertwine. Basically, after being in prison for around 1.5 years, he starts to write this long letter to Lord Alfred Douglas, and it's basically a recollection of their love story and all the things that happened. He accuses him of all the things that he did to him and all the things he did wrong, and how his love for him was actually more hate. And he talks about the influence of Lord Alfred Douglas's father, and about how he's snobby, and about how he just wanted his money, and about how he is the reason why Oscar Wilde now doesn't have any money left, and about why he's imprisoned. And he talks about basically their whole story together in so much detail, and he remembered every little detail, everything that happened between them, honestly. And I was shocked in a way, because just of how vividly and how literally every detail he remembered, and just everything he accuses him of. I don't think really anything like this exists in the world, at least not in publication. And lastly, before I go, I want to talk about this book. Now, this is by Annie Ernaux, and this is the first book that I ever read by her, and I wanted to read something by her for so long, and I can wholeheartedly say that I'm actually obsessed with her. I want to read every book she has ever written, and this book is, I'm sure that I will talk about this more in some other video, but it's basically her diary entries of a time where she had a love affair with a Russian man who lived in Paris at the time, because this was written in the late 1980s, and she is French, obviously. She lives in Paris, and she lived in Paris at the time that this was written. But I think this is just such a it's so beautiful. I mean, I don't even really know how to explain the book, but it's basically her diary entries, and it's filled with obsession, love, and lust. And I think this is absolutely just beautiful, and it's so honest, it's so raw, if you can call it that. It's so authentic. And even though like this book is about obsession between two people, I am now obsessed with Annie Ernaux, and I'm gonna read all of her books. So expect maybe a future video about her, and also maybe a video about this book once I've finished it, because I'm reading it right now, and it's so addictive. I just want to sit at my desk the whole day and just read this book, even though I have other responsibilities, sadly. But yeah, I'm honestly a big fan. I'm a big fan of this. And oh, I didn't even say the title. It's basically to lose oneself. Yeah. So there you go. I think honestly she's now amongst maybe Sylvia Plath and Tove Ditlevsen. I think Annie Ernaux is now one of my, maybe like my top 3. She's in my top 3 authors of all time. And that really says something. This is all I have for you today. This is all I have. Let me know if you have any recommendations on these sort of books. You know, sad books about love, about obsession, about longing, all of that. I mostly like, at least at the moment, I mostly read classics. So if you have any recommendations, maybe from the Penguin Classics or the Penguin Modern Classics, or if you have any author that you love who writes books about love, let me know. Also, if you have read anything by Annie Ernaux and you loved it, let me know which book you love of her, because after this one, I think after this one I will read Simple Passion, because it's about the same person. So I think that would be interesting to read. But after that, I don't know which book of her to read next. So let me know if you have read anything by her. And thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. And thank you to everyone who leaves comments and things like that. I really appreciate it so much. And I hope you have a lovely weekend. Until next time. Bye.